Hello, my name is Brett Yanofsky.
And I'm Austin Morales, and you're watching The Inner Gamer On.
And today we'll be talking about BlizzCon 2021. It was a virtual experience this year, but there was a lot of information around Diablo 2 Remastered, Diablo 4, and of course, Overwatch 2, which is not coming out this year, but there's a lot to be said about it. Are we hyped? Are we not? Let's find out and dive right in right here.
And as always, if you like this content, please like, subscribe, bang that bell, because you know you want to.
Welcome back. Each week we talk about a hot topic in video games, and this week we're going to be talking about BlizzCon 2021, in which they had their introductory virtual experience that took place, where they talked about all the new things coming from BlizzCon. And we talked about last week how not going to be bringing out Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 this year, which was kind of a bummer. But at the same time, we were like, okay. I mean, this is COVID and stuff like that happen and whatnot. But one of the things I really want to focus on about this discussion is, are we still hyped for these games, for one? And then talk a little bit about what was announced, and then really lean into specifically Overwatch, because that is the one in which they gave a lot of new information about where they're headed with this game. Because last year we were like, what can they do to actually make Overwatch better? Because it was kind of up in the air of, I mean, everything we've seen up to this point has been like, oh, we have a new like single player something. We're going to be like keeping the old game as it is, and players that were playing the old game can still play the new game, but with the old content without having to buy the new game or whatever. There's this weird hybrid stuff happening, but there wasn't a lot of like new stuff that was shown about what is going to be new to this game, other than like a little bit of upgraded skins and like maybe some new characters. So they kind of dove into that a little bit more. So Overwatch 2 actually surprisingly had a big showcase here. They had like a 45-minute like developer interview with like Jeff Kaplan and their whole crew. And there's no release date, there's no release window, there's no beta date or anything like that. But they did talk a lot more about what they're doing with Overwatch 2 and why it's taking so long. So since we last heard about this game, we knew that there's Overwatch 2 coming out. They talked about, should they call it Overwatch 2, should they not? Which they ended up saying they should call it Overwatch 2 because of the fact that it is such a, I think it's kind of like a Destiny situation where they wanted to kind of start new and fresh with a new coat of paint, and it would be better just to give it a new title name than it would be to not do that. But one of the things that they are doing is, like, if you're an Overwatch player, you can still play all the multiplayer stuff that's coming to it, even with the new maps, I believe, with Overwatch 1 without buying the second one. But buying the second one will give you access to all the upgrades visually, as well as the PvE experiences that are the big part of this. So a couple of things they jumped into was new maps. So they showcase Rome and New York and how they're trying to capture these new locales in a very interesting, cool way. Rome was one where they're taking this romantic, powerful feeling of overworld architecture and basically like rebuilding them as if they weren't ever destroyed. So you'll get to see the Colosseum fully constructed in this Rome map, which, obviously now it's like half falling apart in real life. And then New York is recreated in a 1920s Art Deco style with a lot of sci-fi elements strewn in there. So you'll have like Grand Central Station, a bunch of little small businesses that might be familiar in that area of New York, and then the Flatiron Building will be present in here. So it's kind of interesting to see these new real-life locations come to life in the new Overwatch game. Thoughts on that, Austin?
I'm actually excited.
Yeah.
About it. Like you said, we saw BlizzCon that time, and it was just a trailer, and it was like, okay, good, great. It's just Overwatch.
Yeah.
With a new coat of paint. But yeah, there's a lot of new things here. New maps is great, but I was thinking, we talked about it the other day, like how do they make it new?
Where do they go from here?
Yeah, it just seemed like an impossible task without making it more the same. But having these new like role updates with the skill trees and stuff, where you can mix and match certain things or just go all one way, is really going to make it interesting to play and then experiment. And I think even the esports aspect of it might get a little more intense, because we're going to see all these cool things. Obviously there's a meta, and eventually people will figure it out and just be like this one build, right? or like this is the best builds to have or whatever. But I mean, it's nice that they're going to be able to bring all these characters over, and they're all going to have like different aspects that they can play with. And at the same time, this is going to make it significantly more difficult for them to make a balanced meta for this game with all the characters they have.
Yeah.
I would hope they would ditch some, or like have a small amount of people starting off, which could be an issue, and people might get upset about that. But I think starting off with a small pool and then increasing that over time would be interesting.
Well, they're not doing that, unfortunately.
I
know. I would like to see something like that, where it's like something where you go back to like kind of like what Destiny 2 just did, where it's like let's vault some of these maps and things and stuff like that, and bring it more kind of focused a little bit. But they did talk a lot about PvP in this interview, and they introduced a new character, Sojourn, which is one that's like been hotly talked about and stuff like that, because she looks badass. And one of the things that they said that they do a lot with the character design is they try to think of a really cool weapon or something that would be fun for a character to have, and then try and build the character around that weapon. So in this case, the weapon that they're using here is a railgun, which is kind of like old school classic shooter, where it's got like slow kind of charge up, and it fires like a big ass like blast like rifle shot at people. So you kind of have to be a little bit more precise with the shot, but it packs a lot of punch. And in this, they were talking about how it can rip through enemy health bars, and they're going to lean heavily on the existing architecture structure of the game, but they're making a lot of experimental changes to just the way the PvP kind of works with. They're going to have this thing called role passives, where background abilities affect the entire class of characters, and there's even going to be like skill trees apparently in this game, where you can kind of like build out a loadout in a sense for your character. So it's not just like the one type of character anymore. There's like 3 different skill trees that looks like you can unlock things as you progress. Could be wrong about that, but that's kind of my understanding with it. And they're putting more emphasis into making tank characters, they're reevaluating tank characters to be not as much damage absorbers, but more up in front, close up brawling characters as well. So Reinhardt, for example, has the ability to do 2 fire strike charges, where he can like basically charge towards an enemy, kind of like how D.Va does with her charge attack. He can charge forward to somebody and push them, but he can also cancel that charge. So instead of just like pushing until he stops, he pushes forward and can like cancel at any time to like stop early, to like shove somebody over a ledge or push them up to the top of a cliff, or whatever it might be. He has control over that. And then also steer the character to like navigate around different areas because of the way that this new charge ability operates. So they're doing a lot of different things with like the different types of tank characters, and just the overall characters entirely, to hopefully bring more balance across the board, so that you're not just so heavily DPS, and people will pick other types of characters now. But again, it's like it comes down to the fact that, like you said, there's a shit ton of characters in here, and it's like it's so hard to balance them all because they have so many now.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to favor some over others for sure. I mean, I don't see how you can't do that or won't. There's no way around that.
Yeah.
There's your staple characters, and they're going to want those to be kind of up front and well balanced and stuff.
Yeah.
But the biggest question is this too little too late? Is there still a big fan base for Overwatch? I mean, does anyone care? Is this just going to be like, a hot topic for the month, and then that's it? Like, it's over?
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is going to be a thing for a hot second, but I don't know how long that hot second is going to last.
Yeah.
I am excited, but I'm not like, I can't wait for this to come out. It's going to be amazing.
Right. I think I could come back and get people hyped on it. It's going to take a little bit to because I mean, there's so many people that are in the whole Battle Royale realm. I could see it taking a little bit to bring people back into the into the game, but I do think that I like that they're thinking a lot into they're not, nothing is everything's up for transition and change. They're looking at every single mode, every single character, every aspect of the game entirely, and looking at ways that they can improve and build and optimize that in every possible way, which I think is important, because like they can't look at anything like, okay, this is just how it is, and this has always worked and we want to keep it this way. They're like, this could change. Maybe it should change. Let's keep that open and then see where things go. And maybe we'll get a better feel out of that. But it does still, I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at the game, it's like, it looks like Overwatch. And what will be, other than that, it's like prettier, but like what will be the thing that really sets it apart? And I'm hoping the game modes will do that in some way. They didn't really dive much into that, but they did say like current game modes are going to change in some capacity. Like they're going to have, no game mode is going to be like the way it was. It's going to be adapted and changed to like better fit this next generation of Overwatch.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see that where it goes. But I like some of the attention to detail, because like one of the things that they talked about a lot, not a lot, but a little bit, was weapon sounds and like weapon recoil and stuff like that. It's like more emphasis on the animations and like effects on how weapons interact different environments. So like they sound different inside of like a tunnel versus when you're outside, and the way that they sound and the way that they reverberate audio around the area. So like they put a lot of like depth and detail into like every single gun and weapon that you use in the game to like be part of that, kind of add some immersion to the world that you're engaging in, which I thought was just a neat little detail that they were like spending extra time on. And just like, here's a bunch of guns that no matter where you are, no matter what place you're part of, will have an impact. And that even goes into the hero mission modes, because like they have these hero missions that are like replayable co-op PvPs that are going to basically have you jump into missions with your friends that have a lot of like different objectives that you do throughout the world. That you have like, oh, here's a mission here that takes place in Rome, and you have to go, capture 50 things and return them back to this thing, or like maybe like push a cart, or things that you see in like the regular game. But there's gonna be like AI players inside that world that you'll have to, basically like fight. And there's a whole variety of new enemies that they've introduced into the PvE mode. From like, there's one that comes in and like has like it's like a ticking time bomb, big brute character that comes in the area and like starts like flashing and like ticking, and you have to like get out of the way, otherwise it's going to blow up and like cause AoE damage. And there's other ones that are like flying characters that fly around everywhere and try and shoot at you from the sky, and a bunch of different types of enemies that will be here to like interact with the world. But then there's like situations where you come back to the mission later on, and there are going to be different environmental effects. So like one time you'll be playing the game where there's a daytime, sunset, night variant, and there's also weather conditions that can change mid-match, such as like sandstorms, snowstorms, rain. So like different, based on those conditions during the type of time that you're jumping into that mission, will require you to decide on what type of character you want to bring in there. Because like if it's like a heavy snowstorm, you might be like, well, I'm going to bring this character in because they can see X-ray vision or whatever. And, as opposed to like bringing in your traditional character you normally play with. So it allows you to kind of like change things up a little bit based off of what the mode is at that current moment. And it's a way to level up your characters as well, which is, interesting than having to go in like competitive PvP or whatever. Like you can level up these characters outside of that. So
yeah, no, there's a lot of interesting things here, and I'm excited for. But yeah, we need to see what's going to happen.
Yeah,
it's too early to tell, but there is some hype here, I think.
Yeah. Well, they also have the campaign, so they also talked a little bit about that. So that's where your campaign centers on the members of the Overwatch being brought back together to work out what's behind a second Omnic Uprising. Each one will have cinematic intros and outros with seamless cuts to and from gameplay. Every story mission is a custom-built map and are described as, quote, absolutely gigantic. So brand new maps that you've never seen before, worlds and stuff to explore. And then different heroes you can play with that will have voice lines and all kinds of stuff in a new realm that's not just like, what you've already been in and played in previous maps and arenas and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool that it sounds like it's a pretty, they didn't show too much on it, but they did talk about different areas you're going to travel to. And it sounds like it's not just an afterthought. Like this is a full on campaign.
Thank goodness.
Which is awesome.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, for sure.
At least play and get through that.
Yeah.
And they said it's something you can always come back to. Like it's something you can do week in and week out. Like They're trying to make it make your gameplay vary, so it's not, even though you're doing the same map, it feels different. And I think that's really, really good to have.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's hard to execute that and think of all the possibilities, because you can only have so many possibilities unless, you add a lot more time and effort into a game, which they might put a lot of time and effort into this game to make it something that's astounding.
Yeah.
Again.
Well, I mean, we thought it was coming out this year, and it's not till probably next year. So they must be trying to push it to the next level, which is good. I hope so. I also lied about the skill trees earlier. Turns out they're just for PvE, so they're not going to be in competitive. Okay. You'll have those skill trees that are built for the PvE experiences, hero progression in those areas there. So
I lied too.
7 tiers of progress down, unlock with skill points, with choices of abilities made on the way down the tree. So that's gonna be an ability. And then of course you're gonna have like redesigned skins and stuff that they've been looking at for different ways to change up the way the character looks and stuff. So there's not gonna be much significantly different changes, but like McCree has a full beard. Farah is gonna have a different visor. Reaper is gonna be more fully armored. Widowmaker's got more of a cyberpunk aesthetic going on. Ponytail with the braid, things of that nature. So so interesting stuff. But if you haven't gone and looked at like all the videos and content that they released, like just look up Overwatch 2 BlizzCon, and you'll see all the video content from it. But they showed a lot of gameplay, which the UI doesn't look heavily changed. It's just a little bit more kind of simplified, I'd say, but otherwise pretty similar. But definitely the visuals look a lot better, and there's a lot of new features that are going to be inside this game. So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited. I feel like I'm excited to jump back into this game. Like I think when it does come out, like I could see myself getting into it, and I could see us getting a group together to like go into it, because we haven't. What I liked about Overwatch is like you can have a 5-man team, which there's not many games out there that allow you to have up to 5 players playing. I mean, with games like Call of Duty and Apex and stuff like that, we're limited to like 3, 4, at most. And this is like one of those few that lets us have like a 5-man squad and play with like our whole, like we can have a whole crew playing in here without having to like let people sit out. So
yeah, that's huge.
That I'm really hyped on. So
yeah,
fingers crossed.